This is a lecture from OpenTuition. To benefit from the lecture, you should download the free lecture notes from opentuition.com.
Sometimes auditors have to rely, or certainly make use of, evidence provided by third parties. The third party could be an expert who's needed to produce evidence, produce reports on areas where the auditor is simply not competent to do so. So the expert could be some sort of engineer who is able to certify that a construction project is 67% complete. It could be an actuary. It could be a lawyer who is advising us that it's very unlikely that our client is going to be found guilty of some sort of negligence, and therefore that we probably don't need any sort of contingent liability in the financial statements. Actuaries and pension schemes are, of course, very important. And you can't expect auditors to have, an in-house person for all of these particular skills. Sometimes there is what's known as an auditor's expert, someone who's actually on the auditor's payroll, and many large firms of accountants now have actuaries on the payroll who will, supply the required reports and so on. But the range of potential evidence is and areas is so wide that often they have to use an external expert of some sort, really the client's expert, who will provide the evidence. It could be internal auditors. Sometimes we turn to internal audit because they can do a lot of work and take burden of us. And of course, internal auditors are going to be auditing anyway. And why do we have to repeat all of it? If we had sufficient confidence and sufficient controls, and we review their work, then we're going to get the work done more quickly, and for the client probably more cheaply, and maybe even better. Because actually the internal auditors are experts in their business, whereas the auditors only come in, a few weeks a year, and they do their best, but the external auditors are never going to be quite as skillful and adept as maybe the internal auditors. And finally, we've mentioned here external auditors. Now what we're getting at here is what happens in auditing a group of companies. You are the group auditor, but one of the subsidiaries is not audited by you. So you're getting the group financial statements. They have to be consolidated. You're getting the subsidiaries financial statements. They have to be consolidated into the group financial statements. But you are having to rely to some extent on the audit report and the work done by the subsidiaries auditor. Whatever the class or third party, we have to make sure that they are qualified and that they have the appropriate experience. Appropriate experience because somebody could be qualified as an estate agent, but perhaps only ever deals with domestic properties, houses and apartments. If your client is dealing in industrial property, factories, storerooms, offices and so on, then although the estate agent is qualified, they are not really competent because they haven't got experience in that line of buildings. They have to be independent. This means really independent of the client. If the client uses an estate agent regularly for buying and selling properties and so on, that estate agent gets a good commission for every transaction that is carried on behalf of your client. And then that estate agent is being used to value properties at the period end. Then of course there is a real danger that your client tells the estate agent, I want these properties to be valued up as far as you can because I need to secure a loan and I need the maximum possible property value to secure the best loan. Now that estate agent may well be influenced because of the huge amount of income and commission they're getting on a kind of day-to-day basis from the client. And therefore, they're not going to be objective. And finally, we want them to be professional. We want them to be members of a professional body, to act professionally, to, if you like, write business-like letters, to come to meetings when they say they're going to be coming to meetings and so on. You want a proper company or a proper person doing it. You don't particularly want it's almost someone operating out of their bedroom doing it without a good professional team behind them. And with professional comes the idea of a quality control system, because it's not just accountants who want quality control systems. Experts will have them as well. Within the expert there'll be processes of review, so that the junior valuer is reviewed by a more senior valuer before the report on the valuation of properties is sent out. You should agree the following in writing. We have to get absolutely clear what these experts are going to be doing, or what these third parties are going to be doing. So the nature, scope and objectives of their work, what they are valuing for, what they're supposed to be valuing, that you're just valuing the industrial properties, you're not getting involved in the commercial, in the domestic properties, and so on. Respective responsibilities, what I as the auditor will do, what you as the expert will do. We need the timing of communications, in particular maybe the timing of the final report from the third party. That has to fit in with the rest of our audit planning, so that we can complete the audit on time. And that the expert observes confidentiality. Think if you set an expert out to value a company's commercial property. Think of, and let's say property had all gone up. Think of the valuable information that expert has about perhaps the profitability of your client. And just as we don't want to be spreading that sort of information because it's going to be maybe influencing things like insider trading, it's not fair basically. You don't want the expert to be going out and talking to friends about how your client company is actually doing. Now, what does the auditor do? What can the auditor do when they get the essentially expert's work coming in? And remember that the third party, no matter how expert, it does not relieve the auditor of responsibilities. And indeed, auditors are usually not even supposed to mention in the audit report that they have relied on the opinion of a third party expert for anything which is in the financial statements, because that is it almost seems like blame shifting, kind of undermines the power of the audit report. You say it's all okay, except we don't know about that because we weren't involved in the valuation. It's not great. So the auditors have to take responsibility, but it's responsibility of an area where they don't have maybe huge expertise, otherwise they wouldn't be getting an expert in. But they have to do their best. They have to pick away. Their professional skepticism will extend to the work of an expert as well. So what they have to do is to try to check as best they can with consistency of any other evidence they have. So if you know that there's been a recession and a property slump, yet your expert has upvalued the client's property, you're seeing a bit of a contradiction there. In general, property has gone down, but this client's property seems to have gone up, and you go back to the expert and you be quizzing them and saying, why is this an exception? How can you justify that? Assumptions made. A good example of assumptions made would be to do with pension funds. There are assumptions made there about growth rates and earnings rates. And if at current economy, let's say that the earnings rate, growth rate was forecast to be 5%, but the actuary plugs in 10%, you have to think that that's a variance. Why is the expert doing that? Is it to boost the earnings? Is it to keep the pension deficit down? It doesn't look right. Use and accuracy of source data. For example, you want the expert to value the client's properties. At least make sure that the list of properties which are figuring in the statement of financial position is up to date and accurate, and give that to the experts, so at least they are going around and looking at the right buildings to do the valuation on. Or if you're dealing with pensions, at least give them an up-to-date list of employees. Otherwise, how do you possibly know, no matter how good your calculation is after that, if you start off with the wrong number of employees, you're not going to get to the right answer for the adequacy of the pension. And finally, is it still current? If the expert's report was written 3 months ago, and there seem to have been substantial changes in the economy or whatever's going on in those 3 months, we have to think whether the expert opinion is still valid, or whether we need to get some sort of update.